Both my grandmothers had depression. Growing up in my family, we didn't talk about it. My mother's mother gave me a ring for my graduation and in a slip of a tongue told me she bought it to combat her sadness and immediately apologized. My father's mother takes as many pills as the doctor will prescribe for depression, restless leg pain, and for her ever-growing size as the temptation of Southern comfort food is the only safety her mother ever taught her to know. My father makes fun of her. No one needs as many pills, he says. She's too dramatic, he thinks. I have 4 brothers, so I was born an outcast. I am my father's favorite simply for the body I was born into. They told me the reason they had 5 children was because they kept trying for a girl, and then once they had me, they wanted me to have a sister. When I was 10, I remember driving past water towers and I burst into tears because I was so alone. My parents homeschooled me, and when I escaped it, I found myself in public school, and I also found myself completely and utterly alone. They asked me if I was sad because I didn't have a sister. That day they got me a hamster so that I would have someone. If you ask my mother, she doesn't remember. She remembers the hamster, not the motive. I do. I remember my sadness. I do. I remember sitting in a Sunday school class and a blonde girl about my age weeping because she was the only one in class without a friend, and so I befriended her. I remember the look on my teacher's face, looking something like pride or hope for me, since even though I was 6, I understood the value of making sure no one was alone. In Sunday school, they taught me you were never alone if you had Jesus in your heart. I was taught that I was made in His image, a perfect representation of a holy being that created the world around me. Since then, I wonder why, if I am the ultimate creation, if I am the superior, perfectly handcrafted human, why am I sad? We were made in His image. So God must be sad. In Sunday school, they taught me that God had no use for humans except for companionship because of how alone He was. Now, they didn't phrase it like that, but it's very easy to read. In the same way He made Eve for Adam because he couldn't survive by himself, I was made for a God that begs me to pray every night. And thinking about it, I just think He wants someone to check up on him. Heavens upon heavens of angels, and He made me. I guess He needed someone to see if He was all right. So when I pray, I feel God in the room beside me. True, He's an omnipresent being, but sometimes it feels like I have His full attention. Other days it feels like there is no God. But if there is no God, then who sits in the chair across from me at nighttime? I wonder. I read somewhere that millennials are crying wolf with mental illness, that since 100 years ago no one had depression, that everyone now is just too sensitive. But I've seen the faces of broken people, and I think when it comes down to it, 100 years ago, it was all the same. I mean, they named the 30s after it. I think there have been sad people since the creation of man. If human was content, then Eve wouldn't have needed the apple. I think a lot of things. I think beside every husband is a sad wife to some extent, or vice versa, or they're both sad, or they're not sad, but sometimes they wake up in the morning and wish they hadn't. Because a lifetime is relative, and sometimes life feels like a 30-second jog between sunrise and set, and then sometimes the hour hand on the clock feels like a century, and so at nighttime I pray. Because sitting on a cloud somewhere is a God who cannot seem to die. It says in the Bible, if you agree to keep God company, you will receive eternal life, but the issue is that life is no longer appealing to me. And so I weep for a God because He cannot die. And so after 4.6 billion years, He couldn't take the sadness anymore, and so He finally decided to make a being that could talk back. And everyone around me refuses to believe that He's real, and the rest believe He's too busy for a 10-minute conversation before they fall asleep, or an hour on Sundays. And forgive me if this sounds silly. I know it's silly. But when my grandmothers told me they had depression, I couldn't help thinking to myself, wow, I can't believe they were so sad and still managed to create so many wonderfully happy people.